Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone, and hopefully you are well this afternoon in the Alberta area, and perhaps you are elsewhere in the world and tuning in from wherever you are. Then good morning, or perhaps good evening, and hopefully you're having a great day. And let's. I just want to confirm that everybody can hear us here. All right. So today we have a special guest joining us, but let me just start by saying again, welcome to the Conversations with Dune and Friends. And today we have a special guest joining us, and is Angie Klein. So Angie Klein is going to join us in just a moment here, but perhaps. You know what? I'm going to bring Angie on camera here while I do her brief introduction as well. So, Angie, you are coming on here. Say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
How are you, Angie? Can you hear me as well?
I can hear you just fine, Dune. I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
Wonderful. I'm good. And we already have 11 people on here watching us live, and Jim is saying he can hear us fine. And yeah, Quinn, excellent. So we have some folks here kind of saying hi, chiming in here. So welcome, and let me just do a quick introduction of your background here. I know the introduction is in the sort of advertising poster, as well as the is crawling across the bottom there. So maybe I'll just give you the audience a bit of a shorter version of that, and then we can sort of touch on it along the way as well. You have quite an interesting and diverse history, right, Angie? I read your bio and learned a lot more about some of the challenges that you've gone through, and the triumph that you had over the years. And so Angie Klein was born in February 1964. I don't know. That's just before the Summer of Love, I understand, in Calgary. Her parents were divorced when she was 3 years old, and got her first guitar when 4 years old at Christmas there, and from Dad. And music class was a big part of her elementary years, and she had a love for music and drama, and um, finished grade 9, but then was kicked out of high school 3 times. And you had
Yeah.
an attitude there, hey, maybe. But she got her first job in the flower shop, and bought her first guitar at the pawn shop and started writing music, and really left home to live on the streets. Obviously, very tough times during that stage of your life. Picked fruit and sold drugs, and panhandled and busked in order to survive. And later on, moved to a hippie community in Jasper there, where free camp, and played a lot of folk music, and continued to busk and write music, and really. You got back in touch with your dad there, and after 4 years of no contact, and at that point he won the election. And as we know, you went to Mount Royal College for your vocals, and so really into music there as well, and start to have some kids, and got married, and all that kind of good stuff. Continued to write music, and uh, had some sort of challenges with some family activities with your husband activities and things like that. We're going to hear all kinds of stories about that. But anyway, at this point, your dad, Premier Klein, has now become Premier of Alberta. And so all of the kind of dynamics that play into your life, and your family life. And but you started over, and I'm going to kind of pause there and say, you're going to take us through a very wild ride of a life journey that is full of ups and downs, full of kind of challenges as well as triumph. And I'm glad to say that you're joining us today from very much a point of triumph and victory. And that's what we want to focus on, is that to each one of us, there's a journey that we want to share with others, but we also want to celebrate the triumph that is today. So, and Angie, again, perhaps if you want to start off by telling us a story, maybe a background, a story, in addition to what I've just sort of cited there. Any story that you want to start us off, Angie, for the hour of conversation here?
Well, the day I became the mayor's daughter is probably one of the most interesting stories that I have.
Mm-hmm.
I was like I said in my bio, I was living in Free Camp in Jasper.
Mm-hmm.
By then, I had moved into staff accommodations. I was chambermaiding,
Mm-hmm.
and I had my first paycheck, probably one of my first paychecks. I thought, well, I hadn't seen my dad in a very long time, and I was bound and determined to take him for lunch. His birthday was coming up on November the 1st. And so I called him, and he said, well, don't come for my birthday, come for the election.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what election? I hadn't spoken to him for many years. He says, well, I'm running for mayor. I'm like, oh, that's cool. So he didn't offer to put me on a bus or, anything. So I did what I always did. I loaded up my stuff, and I put on my backpack with the frying pans hanging off the back, and my big hippy skirt with the fire holes in it, and set out on the road with my thumb, and arrived in Calgary on the day of the election.
Mm-hmm.
And I arrived at his campaign office, and I looked just like any old street urchin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I go into the office, and I was basically shunned and ignored by everybody and asked to leave a couple of times. And finally I said, okay, this isn't going my way. So I got up in the middle of a table, and I yelled into the room. I said, look, my name is Angie Klein. My dad is Ralph Klein. He's asked me to come here, and we're going for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was some motivated people getting me down for their sorry,
Mm-hmm.
and they take me in the back room, and I see Dad, and he takes one look at me, and he says, do you have anything else to wear? Like, yeah. So once again, he now doesn't offer me any means of transportation. I get on a bus, the city
Mm-hmm.
bus, and I go back to Dover to my mom's house, where I hadn't also been in 4 or 5 years. And I find some clothes that thankfully she had still hanging in the closet, and thankfully they still fit me,
Mm-hmm.
And I get changed. I get back on the bus, and I go for lunch with my dad, and sometime later that day, I became the mayor's daughter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if I can summarize what I've heard there, it is a bit of a mixed blessing, mixed bag in terms of kind of. People, once they realize who you are, was kind of ushering you onto the sort of the into the conversation there, but they were concerned about the look that you had at that time, whether it's a hippie look or whatever have you. It's just a reminder to all of us that in politics, there's a lot of optics that they tend to manage, right?
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So thanks for sharing that. So that's the day you now you continue to play music throughout the years. What's the longest time that you went without playing music, where you say, I'm just too preoccupied with life, other stuff, where you just put music out? Is there?
I would say when Jeff and I were married, there was a lot of years where I would play so very rarely, like maybe 5 or 10 times a year.
Mm-hmm.
And, my neighbors would go, hey, Angie, around a campfire, sing us a song.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot of years with Jeff where, I didn't play. He was an alcoholic, and it made it difficult for me to go out. I didn't go out as much, just because he would always be drunk by the time I got home, and it was a hard bunch of years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A bunch of our friends and a bunch of your friends are also saying hi here on the comments feed. I know because you're on the phone coming in to join us from your phone, you're not able to see all these comments that are streaming in. But Janet Clower said hi, and Jackie Bain Murray says hi. Pat said hi. Of course, Quinn is there saying all kinds of things. Jim Dick, and yeah, so we got lots of people kind of viewing and commenting. So tell us about so in your kind of along the way, you fallen into some drug use. Tell us about that story, how you got started with that, and give us a story about how you got into drugs and the fights that you had with that.
Sure. Well, I got into drugs at a very, very young age. I was doing LSD, PCP, cocaine from the ages of like 13, 14, 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I'm missing a few days of my life that I can't, remember at all from doing PCP.
Mm-hmm.
I had stolen it from a bunch of bikers with some friends of mine at about 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in a rough part of town in Calgary. I lived in Dover,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't go to school in around there. Mom sent me off to another school she thought was better because I was smart, but it was equally as bad.
Mm-hmm.
I would spend all my allowance on LSD.
Yeah, yeah.
I started selling drugs out of Billiard Square at about 15 or 16 years old, and
Mm-hmm.
I was smoking Cocoa Puffs and doing lines in the bathrooms, and
Mm-hmm.
I got into a really pretty rough crowd.
Mm-hmm.
By the time, just before I left to go on my my little journey that took me to free camp, I was raped
Mm-hmm.
by about 5 guys and a dog,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that was about 3 days of my life. It was horrific ordeal.
Mm-hmm.
But I've through counseling, I've gotten over that.
Mm-hmm.
But that was one of the motivating factors that made me leave the city of Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
And I left with about 30 cents in my pocket, no money, just left, took the clothes on my back and a blanket, and I was gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So again, kind of a new low that you've reached there. And when you're in that low, you were motivated to kind of get out and change things up for yourself. Is that when you went to Jasper or Edmonton that particular time?
From Calgary, I went to Kelowna.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I picked fruit. I picked fruit for a summer.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no money in picking fruit.
Mm.
So I lived in a tent, and I continued to play I bought my first guitar while I was still in Calgary. And so I had that was my companion. And I did a lot of writing and singing and busking for cash. And, I really enjoyed that small little bit of my life. And then from there, I hitchhiked to Vancouver, where I lived on the streets and busked. And it was a pretty scary place. I lived down in Granville, down in Robson for a little bit. Met Tom Petty there. He was. That was quite interesting.
Yeah.
He was living with a junkie in the same apartment that I was in, or staying with one. And he came. I was burning a handle on a pot on a gas stove. It's a horrible smell if you've ever smelt it. And Tom Petty came down in a Chinese kimono robe and said, "That stinks." It was the highlight of my life. Still is.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I lived in Vancouver for quite a while. I lived in a little junky hotel called the Marble Arch, and it was such a horrible place that I was scared to go up into my room. I would climb in up the fire escape in through the window. And so I lived there for probably 6 months to a year. Traveled around, lived in Victoria for a little bit, and then stuck my thumb back out and went to Jasper because I heard of this great place called Free Camp. And I thought, well, like living in a tent can't be that bad. And so I did that I lived in Jasper for 3 or 4 years. I would live in a tent until it got cold, and then I would get a job in town and live in staff housing.
Yeah. I have a question for you. And by the way, your camera is sort of to your, if you, what I mean is, that camera eye there is looking for your eyes, your beautiful eyes, that if you can look at that audience, normally when we speak to people, we can, look at people, but if you want to look at us, just look in that camera and we'll, it'd be like, you're like looking right at us. So yeah, it's a bit of a tricky thing, but tell us out of all that experience, and now we're going to show some, some wins and some success and your awesome journey and come around, and you're an owner of a flower shop and working hard at that, continue to make it successful. And in many ways, the COVID situation, you're still quite productive and sort of sustainable and viable. So that's all great stuff, all the good news stuff. But while we're on this challenge here, could you maybe share with us what are some lessons you learned from that? If somebody who's never had that, living on the street and say, oh, I wonder what lessons they learned from kind of living that, very difficult life, I can only imagine. Any kind of interesting insights that you want to share with the viewers?
Well, people are all the same. That's one thing I learned. What doesn't matter whether you have a ton of money or very little money. If somebody's going to screw you over, they're going to screw you over. Or if somebody's loving and giving, they're loving and giving. I've met people on both sides of the spectrum that have both of those qualities and traits.
Right.
It sucks sleeping on the ground when it's cold. I'm paying for it now. So if you ever want to go out and do that, just don't, okay? Because I have arthritis and aches and pains in spots that most people probably don't have. The level of freedom that I experienced and the insights that I have could never have been gained by working in retail or following the normal line. I have a very different way of thinking about things. I'm much freer because when you have nothing, you don't need much to survive. I've realized that you can live on very little, and stuff is just stuff.
You bet. I've been there myself, as you know, in the early 80s. I was one of those people escaping Vietnam there, put my life on the line, refugee camps, 2 of them, into Canada with just a shirt on my back. And the biggest lesson I learned from that is that, it's nice to have all the stuff that we do have here in Canada, but really happiness doesn't require all of that stuff. You can actually choose to be very happy and enjoy life with very little, right? I think you have found the same thing as well.
Absolutely, Dune. Absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love comfort. I love luxury. I love good food. That's another thing. I mean, not very many people that have experienced the things that I have in living on the streets. I've also had dinner with the Queen. So, so from being, I have really a lot of experience on both sides of that fence.
Yeah. So in other words, that allows us to understand the people you interact with in your daily life and customers as well of your shop, right? To know, like you said earlier, people are the same, regardless. If you're a queen, you still have some of the same challenges that we all do as human beings. If you are living on the street and literally just on the borderline of life and death there, you still have some of the commonality that all of us have. So that's a great discovery to kind of have firmly planted in you, right, early on.
Yeah. And people are inherently good.
Yeah,
I was helped by so many people along the way in so many different ways. So I mean, I've been harmed by a lot of people, but I think the good in people far outweighs the bad.
We're going to switch it up a little bit. We'll come back to this topic again, but let's talk music. Tell us, in fact, take us to the present time. Tell us about the band and the things that you were do in music, and then I'm going to show 1 or 2 video clips here quickly, but go ahead and take us to the present time, your music and your flower shop as an owner of that.
Yeah, well, I met Quinn McKendry at the gas pump, and I was just stopped in. I was doing a flower delivery, and I had some space in between setting up this wedding. And I thought, well, I'll just stop into the jam and have a quick beer, sing a song. And I sat down, and what happened to be the only seat empty was right next to Quinn, and we got to chatting. And we formed a great bond. And a little while later, a couple months later, we were living together. And I was into music, in the music scene here in Edmonton before I met him, but mostly doing singer songwriter, not really doing much jamming,
Hmm.
more just pushing my own music. And Breezy Brian Gregg and the Little Flower were a great. Uh, just a great uh, expression, a place for me to express my music.
Hmm.
And when I met Quinn, my music took a really different turn. I started doing other people's music and singing the blues, and I really have a love for the blues, always have,
Hmm.
and it just grew naturally into forming a band. One day I was at the Leaf, and one of the customers there said, "Do you have a band?" I said, "No." Well, and then she said, "Well, I bet you that Glenn would let you play here if you had a band." So I said, "Hey, Glenn, is that true?" He said, "Oh, yeah, for sure. I love you." So I think it was probably 30 days later I had a band.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So the deal is if you get the gig, you'll form a band, and that was the original the Inclines. Didn't have any of the players that I have now, but it was a good solid start, and it was fun. And now I'm playing with Will Ryan and Sean Stevens, Daryl Simpson, Benjamin Williams. We formed a great band.
Hmm.
We recently performed in the Memphis Bound Blues Challenge
Hmm.
and did fairly well there. And we had lots of gigs last year. We had a bunch of gigs lined up, but of course, COVID-19 uh, put the kibosh on all that. And I'm really
Hmm.
enjoying playing at Shakers with Quinn. John Hewitt is a big part of my life. He was one of the members of my band for a while.
Hmm.
We've had some really great players play with me.
Hmm. Hmm. So I'm going to show this clip here. Tell us about this clip before I roll it here. Can you see the clip?
Okay.
You see the clip? Yeah.
Yeah, that looks like me at Shakers with John Hewitt, and yeah, that's a great. That'll be a. I think that's a. I think that might have been one of our first incline gigs.
Hmm. Let's play and tell me if you can hear the sound. Okay.
Okay. No, unfortunately, I can't, but that's okay if everybody else can.
All right. Well, that was awesome. Tell us more about that. Is that like a couple years ago or last year, or how recent was this?
That might be the first shakedown that Will ever came to. So that would have been probably the beginning of last year. We started the jam in January or somewhere in and around there.
Hmm.
So that would have been about a year ago.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, you start the jam and hosting it every Saturday, and obviously off right now with COVID, but resume again soon, we hope. And so, tell us about what it means to you to be hosting a regular jam in the Edmonton scene here.
Well, when Shakers approached Quinn and I about the jam, it was one of those really surprise moments. Something had happened, and they needed somebody to fill in the next weekend. And were we interested? And it was like, yeah.
Hmm.
But if I would have thought the week before that I would be hosting a jam ever in the city of Edmonton, never mind one at a venue as large as Shakers,
Hmm.
I would have laughed at you. But no, we're enjoying it. Quinn and I make a really good team. We have an interesting way of running things where our guests are part of the house band. So it makes for interesting times because we pick new music for everybody to learn every week.
Hmm.
And so, in the truest sense, we are jamming
Hmm.
even at the beginning when we do our opening set.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, let's go back to some of the other stories that you have that the audience might want to hear. Tell us about the maybe the story about one of your previous husbands got into trouble, and
Oh,
how it affected you, and what's some lessons you learned from that.
right. Okay. So my daughter's father, Richard Marcia, uh, he was. I fell in love with him head over heels, right?
Hmm.
And I knew he was kind of a bad guy, but I was wild. I mean, at this time, I was a wild girl. I had just
Hmm.
left my second husband,
Hmm.
or my first husband, and I didn't know he was a bank robber when I first met him, but over the years
Wow.
I learned that was true, but it didn't stop me from marrying him. I knew what he did when we got married, and so did my dad.
Hmm.
But my dad insisted on performing the ceremony. That was the second time. He just kept marrying me, and I'm like, no, no more. Anyways, so he insisted on performing the ceremony. We were married in the offices, or in the not the premier's office, but in the premier, where the premier would do his work there in Calgary.
Hmm.
And he performed the ceremony, and we had gone and got the licenses and the blood tests and the whole 9 yards. But what we didn't seem to know was that Saskatchewan and Alberta don't cross-reference their records.
Hmm.
And Richard had said he had his previous marriage annulled.
Hmm.
Well, this wasn't true. That didn't happen. And had he never escaped from prison,
Hmm.
it probably wouldn't have come to light that he was married. But my father married me to a married man.
Hmm.
And when he escaped from prison, his former wife realized her name was Angie too, which is really funny.
Hmm.
His former wife phoned up the newspapers in Calgary and said, "Well, he can't be married to her. He's married to me."
Hmm.
And so it turned out that yes, he wasn't. He was still married, and my dad had performed my marriage to a married person,
Hmm.
and so Richard became the first person in Alberta history for the last 100 years or so that's been charged with bigamy.
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah, Dad wasn't happy, but it's really quite funny. Dad really liked Richard,
Hmm.
and they got along really well. I don't know what it was about him that Dad took to, but he was a very charming human being. And he did try. I mean, he went to rehab, several times, and we had a very violent and sordid love affair. There was a lot of I sent him to jail twice for assaulting me. So it wasn't like it was an easy marriage, but I was just head over heels in love with him. So I stayed. He's passed on now. He died this year of cancer. I should have kept the life insurance, I guess.
So, question. In that journey there, is there any sort of pearls of wisdom or insight that you draw out for our viewers to kind of, based on that sort of very not common experience by any means?
No.
What do you draw out of that?
What do you draw out of that? Don't get married. Just, God, why do I, you know what?
Life is strange.
Life is strange. Life is strange. And, you know what? Do whatever makes you happy, because life is long. And, there are only things to be learned from mistakes. And if you don't make them, then you won't have any experiences.
In other words, this too shall pass, and your life experiences does not constrain you. It does not need to define who you become for the rest of your life. You can evolve from there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And oftentimes you can actually evolve to be a better person than you otherwise would have if you haven't experienced that side of life as well. If your life is too sheltered, you may not be as understanding of people who have those challenges, perhaps.
Right. Yeah, there you go. Thanks. Summed it really up for me perfectly, Dune.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you for sharing that, and take us back to music again. So, any part of your musical journey that you want to share? The next story is going to be about what? So let's go to the music.
Well, recording. I had did a little bit of recording, which I'm really excited to be doing again. Our drummer Daryl has hurt his wrist, and so we just started the process again at Hiawatha Studios, which is John Hewitt's studio. So I'm excited to be starting that journey again. I was in the studio last year or the year before and recorded a song, and I really enjoyed that experience. And I'm really looking forward to doing more recording. And getting out and doing festivals, and I think out of my musical career, there's another story with Dad and my music. I mentioned that I had gone to Mount Royal for vocal. That was my dad's way of getting me off the streets when I moved back to Calgary when he became mayor. He said, well, here, why don't we do this, right? That'll take up some time. And so I would take the bus and go to Mount Royal from Dover and do my vocal lessons. And when the day of the recital came, my dad was, of course, there to see what his money was paying for. And the teacher wasn't really fond of me. She basically said that I was never going to be anything more than a belter. And I thought, that's fine. I want to sing rock music. So, go ahead. And when I showed up there with my dad as my guest for the recital, she her little jaw dropped. So that was great. And later on that day, Dad had a function with the Chinese community in Calgary. He was well loved by and still is well loved by the Chinese communities in both Edmonton and Calgary and all around probably the world. And there was like 200 people in the basement of the Beacon Hotel, all Asian. And he was there to give a speech. And while he's up on the podium, he's giving his speech. And then he says, and I'd like to introduce my daughter, Angie. She's going to sing for you. And I'm like, what? The band was all Asian. I mean, we're talking about I don't know, whatever. So I get up on stage because how am I going to say no, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I get up on stage and in front of 200 people. This is probably my first time ever being in a crowd that large, never mind a
Mm-hmm.
crowd I'm unprepared for.
Yeah.
And the band, I don't even know if they speak English, never mind know anything I know. And so I said, you guys know The Rose, which happened to be the song that I'd done in my recital. And thank God they did.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that, and then I did a little bit of I did Bobby McGee, and got a standing ovation from the room.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's that.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's listen to this clip. This clip is a very short clip, and I know, Angie, because you are on a phone joining us here, there's some limitations with how this thing works. So I'll make it so that you won't hear the music clip, but our audience will. And so
Okay.
it's a very short clip because that way the sound can be better for, broadcasting out there. So give me a second to cue it up here. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And
If I ever find me a good man, I won't be blue no more. I am bruised in my house, from the roof to the ground. I am bruised in my house, from the roof to the ground. Oh, yeah.
so tell us about that clip. There's quite a story behind that clip. You are doing some, is it competing or?
Yeah, that's the Memphis Bound Blues Challenge, and that is my current band, the Inclines. We've got Sean Stevens on the bass, Will Ryan is on guitar, Daryl Simpson is on the drums, and we do have another member of our band now. Benjamin Williams is a keyboard player with us. We have played one show with him, and that was at the Blues Festival, the Winter Blues Festival.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we didn't take home any awards or do anything, but the Old Timers Cabin is such a great place to play, and it was such a great opportunity and an interesting learning curve to compete in such a thing. But yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, yeah. So is the music that you did for that competition, is it slightly different than the music you normally perform at Shakers and whatnot, or is it similar on kind of?
Well, Quinn likes to push the envelope at Shakers. It's not strictly a blues jam.
Mm-hmm.
Any of the songs that I do with the Inclines, sometimes I do them with at Shakers. Our set lists with the band change from venue to venue. So depending on where we're playing, we'll do either a more blues, more original roots type of thing, or something that's a little more dancey and rocky and a little bit more accessible to the masses. If we're playing at a place like Gracie Jane's, it'll be a little more acoustic. So we play to the room, and the same goes for Shakers. It's really gotten me out of my mold. I do, just about any kind of music there, all kinds of genres.
Mm-hmm. Cool, cool. So take us back to maybe another story and around the sort of being the daughter of a premier of Alberta and how it how it affects your life during that period there and yeah, just maybe share something further to that.
Yeah, sure. Well, when you're a family of a public figure, you're also a public figure, whether you like it or not. I was once asked for my autograph by some young school children. I gave it to them, of course.
Yeah.
But you don't. Your your public life, your private life isn't a private life. If I would go into a bar, there would probably be 4 or 5 people going, and so people already have ideas of what I should be like before they've even met me because of who I am. So for many years, I really actually never do introduce myself as, hi, I'm Angie, I'm Ralph's daughter,
Yeah.
But people in the room will say, hey, this is Angie, it's Ralph's daughter. So, it's made my making friends a little bit probably more tough than a regular Joe or Jane, because I always was suspicious of, okay, what is it that appeals to you about me? Is it my name, or is it actually me? But moving to Edmonton was a good thing for me. In Calgary, everybody knew who I was. I was Ralphette. It didn't really, there wasn't really a lot of gains, like financially, or, everybody thinks, oh, you must be rich, you must be spoiled. Well, no, I have a huge family. I have one brother that is my full blood sibling. And my dad married a woman who had two daughters already. And they had a daughter, which is my half sister. And then my mom remarried, and they had two children. So I have a half sister and a half brother on that side. And then both my mom and my stepfather found that they had children that found them out of wedlock. And so I have another half sister and another stepsister. So I have a huge family, and I would say the majority of my siblings are Indigenous. I mean, I have my sisters and my half sisters on Colleen's side all have Native blood, and my stepfather's daughter has Native blood. So I actually have more Indigenous sisters and brothers than I do Caucasian, which is interesting.
Yeah. So very eclectic kind of sets of circumstances there. And take us back to the music. Maybe sort of paint us a picture of you started, as you said earlier, singer-songwriter. Do you still write a lot of songs, or do you write some songs these days? You're too busy?
Yeah, as a matter, no. There's a benefit to working by myself and being my own boss. Sometimes a customer will come in and I'll be pounding away on my guitar or looking for a backing track because I've got something in my head and singing at work. So don't be surprised if you come in the back door of my flower shop and I'm singing away, because I've actually written 2 songs here in the last few months. That's what we're going into the studio to record.
Tell us about your flower shop. What's the name of it? Where is it located? And give us a bit of a backgrounder on that.
Yeah, so the flower shop's called Petals on the Trail. I originally was located on St. Albert Trail and 118th Avenue on the traffic circle. I was in that location for 9 years. I bought it from my boss, who I was working for at Petals for Less. He was going through a nasty divorce, and one day he came into the back room and he said, I think I'm going to sell the other shop. And I said, okay, I'll buy it. And he looked at me, and within 30 days, I had, just whatever money I had in the bank, probably $2,000. But I have good credit, and I'm a very determined, willful kind of person, and so I managed to buy the flower shop and open it up. So changed it from Petals for Less to Petals on the Trail. And there was 9 years, and then the economy took a downturn, and my landlord kept raising the rent. So I moved to this really funky location at 127th Avenue and 127th Street, and I opened up an artisans collective. So the majority of the giftware and other things that I sell in my store are on consignment by artisans and other entrepreneurs, and I give them a commission when I sell it, or I take a commission when I sell it. It's a really funky place, and I'm at a point where I'm finally making money, and I can rest a little bit, do a lot of weddings, but not this year.
You bet. That's how entrepreneurship works, right? At first, you work very hard with a very clear vision, but while you're making all kinds of successes along the way, money sort of comes later. And when the money comes, obviously that's a easier time in your life when the money does come. But the hard work had happened long, long before the money came, right?
You bet.
Hmm. I think I have your website here. Tell me if I'm on the correct one. It says Artisans Row at 127 Pedals on the Trail. I think I have your
Yeah,
website here. So I'm going to maybe just go ahead and share it here and bring
that'd
it
be
on.
great.
Yeah. Tell us, what do you have on your website that people might benefit from if they were to go to your website? What kind of things could they get there?
Well, basically, my Pedals on Trail website is more just a floral ordering website. Um, I have uh, two domains, pedalsonthetrail.com and pedalsonthetrail.ca. I'm trying to decide which one's going to be more financially
Hmm.
lucrative for me, but at the moment, I'm running two. It takes a year to find out, and for
Hmm.
me to decide what is the better format for me to go. But our Facebook page, I have two Facebook pages. I have a wedding website. I mean, I'm all over the internet. It's sometimes a lot, to juggle the flower business, the wedding business, and then hosting the jam. And sometimes I'm working on 5 websites and 5 domains at the same time.
Hmm. Hmm. So, gotten into all the tech stuff. That is amazing how we are so industrious when we have a vision and we have a goal, or because you kind of deep into the web content and web publishing and multiple websites and multiple web pages and all of that. And some people who are not into that space wonder how we make time. But yeah, when I guess we're clear about our vision, what we're trying to do, right?
Yep, you get faster and faster at it too.
Yeah.
It's I've got two Google My Business pages, two web pages, two this, to that, and I use platforms like Later, to post ahead of time, and
Hmm.
you just try to find time.
You bet. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Your Facebook pages, I'm sure our viewers can find those as well. And probably also reference from the website over. But so take us anywhere you want to take us. We talk a bit about all kinds of different aspects, but are there stories or sort of segments that we haven't covered that you like to kind of speak on or share with us?
Hmm.
Any
Let's
any
see.
photos on the web that you want us to me to pull up or anything like that? We're all game here.
Well, anything you want to show them is good, if it's out there, it's out there.
Yeah.
I think living in Drumheller was an interesting time of my life. I moved from Calgary to Drumheller with that was when I was in my marriage with Richard, and I was trying to split from him and get my poop in a group, and
Hmm.
that's when I was. That you'll find there's a story that hit the National Post that I had said that I was charged with public mischief because he had hit me, and then I went back and said he didn't, and so that was an interesting time of my life, but it was one of the best things that ever happened to me because after it happened, I got into a car accident where I used to drop my daughter off in Crossfield,
Hmm.
and my mom would meet me there and take my daughter for the weekend so I could have a bit of a break.
Hmm.
And I'm not a seatbelt wearer, which I don't say to any of you guys, you should wear your seatbelt. Okay, wear your seatbelt. But I wasn't at the time, and I was driving my Astro van, and is something I'm pulling out of the gas station parking lot, and something said, "Put your seatbelt on."
Hmm.
So I put my seatbelt on, and then I approached the edge of the parking lot just before I got onto the road, and it something said, "Tighten it up." So I pulled it really tight, and Now, I'm also not a cruise control user, but at this particular point, I thought, you know what? I'm going to put my cruise control on. So I'm sitting there driving my van, listening to music, doing the speed limit because the cruise control was on, and red truck T-boned me doing highway speeds. Had God, I say God because I believe fully that was the intervention there, because I wasn't going to put my seatbelt on. When God told me to put my seatbelt on, He also told me to put them. It's because I was loose and free, and my car rolled across a 6-lane highway, kitty corner, from one corner to the next across 6 lanes. Every window was shattered. Everything I owned was broken and thrown down the hill. And I got out of the accident with just a scrape on my knee. And I didn't go to the hospital. I didn't. I was probably in shock. But the next day, then I went to the bar and got drunk, and I didn't go to work the next day, and I got fired. And I was like, because I was drunk, and that was my excuse. So anyways, the lady that fired me, I worked at R&J Flower Shops. She's one of my dearest friends now. One of the best. I was probably the best thing that happened to her, and she was probably the best thing that happened to me, because we changed each other's lives a lot. And her firing me was the catalyst that made me move to Edmonton. So I'm forever grateful.
Yeah. So in other words, people here talk about tough love, and people talk about, they really did me a favor. It sounds like you had one of those experiences there where the person who fired you, you still have high regards for, and they're in your heart, as well as might have actually introduced a good change in your life, right?
Absolutely.
Tell us about this picture of your band here. I think this is your current band, is it?
Yeah, that's my current band with we're missing Dune there. That's Ivy Jane Photography. If you guys ever need band photos or wedding photos or anything, Ivy Jane Photography took that picture. That is in my little gazebo in my backyard, which is a really fun place. Sometimes we do live concerts from there. Again, it's Will Ryan, Sean Stevens, and Daryl Simpson, and myself. We actually there's another person that's on the outside edge of that, whom I won't name, but we had to crop him out because we ended up switching keyboard players. So the picture was longer, but I needed a photo for the Memphis Bound Blues Challenge, and so we went with that. Are you there? Did I lose you?
Sorry about that. I muted myself, and I didn't remember to bring it on. So, all right. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Yeah. So as you reflect on your very kind of diverse experiences, are there some kind of themes that resonate? What are some pearls of wisdom that you can pull up from, I would say, a life very, you basically lived life in all its different forms and in all different ways. And what are some sort of things that you can pull out for the rest of us to ponder?
Don't be afraid to just do it. Just because you don't have the means doesn't mean you don't have the ability. You're stronger than you think. You're beautiful. And even if you're hungry and don't lose weight, it's because that's the way you're built.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing those. And as we round the corner here on the hour, Angie, when I reach out and say, hey, Angie, would you like to come in and have a conversation with me and share this time with our guests, our viewers out there, you said yes. Were there some other sort of elements that you want to share with our viewers that you haven't yet, that you would like to kind of bring forth?
Musical mamas. There's I'm involved with a bunch of women that try to people who may not have access to music, or maybe a little bit shy to go out by themselves in the music scene. That's a really good venue for an avenue for people to get involved in music. So if you can support that, get out, support live music, support your local venues, buy local stuff, eat local food. Plant flowers. We need bees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In other words, during this COVID thing, one of the reasons I started this weekday kind of conversation here is to be mindful of the need to be plugged into our community a bit more. So often we're so busy with everything else that community is not on our forefront of our mind, right? So thank you for a reminder there that, buy local and all those things that you mentioned there, community focus.
Yeah. Well, I'm on my community league. I try to do my part. I belong to apps like Nextdoor, and I try to be mindful of my neighbors, and if you're not involved, you're not doing yourself a service. You're doing yourself a great disservice to not be involved in your community and in your country.
Right. So, in terms of, tell us a bit more about your flower shop. I know you said it's doing quite productive and quite busy and all of those things. Tell us why that is so. When people might have imagined that the flower sort of industry might be impacted quite a bit by COVID, but it sounds like it hasn't.
Oh, that's not true, Dune. The flower industry has been hugely impacted. Our chain of flowers has been greatly diminished. We are not able to import flowers from many, many countries. I'm having extreme shortages of flowers, and I'm unable to get a lot of stuff a lot of the time. But that being said, I believe that business is increasing because people are leery to go to malls to buy gifts for people. There are, so flower gifting and flower delivery is an easy way that they can do this. There are more sad occasions. People are not well, so they can't go and visit, and then they send flowers. Services, they can't go and visit them, so they send flowers. So I believe that the need for delivering flowers is greater. But it's become challenging, and I see great increases in the cost of flowers over the next year or two.
I see.
Flights are becoming, it's going to be increasingly expensive to fly. Oh, there goes my phone.
Hey, that sounds like an old phone. Is it like an old kind of ring?
Yes, it is. Absolutely. It's an old phone. My brother put new guts in it. So, yeah.
Is it one you can kind of slam and actually be kind of satisfied slamming down the phone? Yeah.
Absolutely. You could knock somebody out with that. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I guess I put it off the hook, but I guess it'll only stay off the hook for an hour.
I see. Yeah. So, again, thank you so much, Angie, for spending the time with us here. We still got a number of viewers on here, and take us home, Angie. However you like to end this broadcast here, whether you want to tell a story, whether you want to highlight anything, whether you want to just, if you want to sing, go ahead. Just take us home on this this hour of conversation here, Angie.
All right. Oh, Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes Benz? My friends all drive Porsches, all must make amens.